So Chad, what do you make of that? You're the man who started all this, and here you have a group of hugely distinguished broadcasters and people involved in online. Mm-hmm. Where does that leave you thinking YouTube sits in the ecology of all this?
Well, I think what you heard was that we're all pretty optimistic that there's huge potential for online video and the ways that traditional media and these new medias can work together in terms of the synergies that are available in terms of connecting those audiences and driving them to better experiences. And but we're all still trying to figure it out as well. It's only been a few years really since things have taken off in this space, and it's very early to tell how it's all going to work out. But I think you know, with the things that we're working on today, and you know, with the users participating already, with the level of content they're already sharing with one another and creating, I mean, I think there's just a very bright future.
And there's something that underpins YouTube, and we saw, you know, spectacularly last night in the performance, is this kind of DIY libertarian ethic. Is there any sense in which that may be dampened down as the traditional broadcasters get in on the act?
No, I don't think so. I think there's you know, enough people in the world that everyone's going to have a chance to gain an audience, and good content is good content. If that's, you know, coming from Hollywood or coming from an individual in their bedroom, people are going to enjoy watching that. You know, there'll be different types of ways to deliver that message, if it be short form video or a longer form TV or show or even movie. But I think, you know, if it's a studio or a network or a user, everyone's just going to have a chance, and that just wasn't available just you know, a few years ago.
So there are no tensions in this, actually.
Well, I don't know. We're all competing for the same eyeballs, so there will be some competition there, and there will be some tensions. And I think that, you know, BBC UK is Britain's third biggest website, and so, you know, to some degree we're jockeying for space with MSN and YouTube and so on. So I think it'd be naive to say that we can all get along 100%, but actually I think that there's more that binds us than divides us, actually. I mean, we see YouTube as a hugely important distribution channel for our content.
I mean, as you're setting up with Kangaroo, do you see that more as an outcrop of the revolution that Chad personifies, or as just something that's come together with more traditional broadcasters adapting and evolving?
I actually think Kangaroo is pretty fundamental, and I think that as people increasingly want to watch television on their terms, the amount of television they want to watch on the device they want to watch, at the time they want to watch it, and how they want to watch it, and how they want to share it, then sites that can offer that, but still give them what they love from television, which is an unambiguously quality experience, those sites are going to be a pretty important part of the mix. So I'm pretty confident that Kangaroo is not a sideshow. It's going to become, well, if not the Sky of tomorrow, then hopefully at least a significant player.
I mean, Christian, you're an entrepreneur. You're confident this entrepreneurial spirit can survive?
I'm confident. I agree with Chad. I mean, I think the word mix is also the right word to use in that context, because users are going to mix their media take in. They're going to watch television. They're going to be on YouTube, my video. And the ProSiebenSat.1 CEO of ProSiebenSat.1 likes to say that yesterday content was king. Today content is King Kong, meaning, you know, it's just as relevant as it always was. The only difference that it's not only Hollywood and the television stations producing it, but it's also the users producing a lot of irrelevant or not so interesting content, but also a lot of very interesting content. And, well, let the user choose what he wants to see. That's, you know, really the point.
Good. I think it'll be a great time to take some questions. We have about 20 minutes remaining, so this is your chance, sir.
Not having lived in the UK for a long time, I'm just wondering, how is iPlayer funded? Is it a fair game, especially also to the other guys? Or would you prefer tax money over VC money? I don't know. And when will iPlayer be open for people outside the UK?
The iPlayer is funded out of the BBC license fee, which is an annual license of 130. God, I should know that, shouldn't I? £6.50, and a proportion of the BBC's license fee, something like about £5, goes to our entire internet spend, of which a much smaller proportion goes on the iPlayer. So it's gone through an extensive market test and had to be approved by the trust to make sure that the positive impact that it had outweighed any potential negative market impact. Would I prefer to be in a free market? Well, there are obviously swings and roundabouts. You know, I am from a fixed revenue organisation, so there's only so much I can do, no matter how successful iPlayer is. In fact, that's part of the problem. The more successful iPlayer is, my costs go up and my revenue is fixed. Now that's actually quite a challenge, as well as thank you very much for the granted money in the first place.
Do any of the panel feel that there's a protectionist dimension to iPlayer, that here you have a public-funded competitor? Are you very relaxed about this?
Well,
very laid back.
It'd be nice to have tax money. I mean,
that wasn't the question.
Serving video is expensive, but I don't know. I think that the situation in the UK is much different than the rest of the world and what we're dealing with kind of the online world of user-generated content. So I don't know. I think what they're dealing with is much more competitive to traditional TV broadcasters than it is with what we're doing online.
Sure.
Well, coming from Germany, where the situation is similar, with the two big state television networks being funded from the fees paid by everybody in Germany, I still have to say that from a personal point of view, I really like the quality they're producing. I like to watch the Tagesschau in Germany, which is, I think, the highest quality news you can get. And so I think it's only fair that they also go online and show their stuff there. The ZDF in Germany is doing something very similar.
Very similar.
Not living in UK, so but I think that correct me if I'm wrong, BBC has this kind of activities in its mission now, because it seems like it participates to the progress in terms of positive progress of the media of the country. But the question is, and it goes back also to the previous comment, is that given that in some cases like YouTube are tools, you describe it like that, and like Samaraji was saying, a tool is a tool. But the tool can be used in many ways. So my question is, it's true that at the moment is a relationship that to me is very complementary. User-generated content, let's say professional content at the moment, are not even, up till now, cannibalized in terms of timing. But if I go back to the mission that the founder of Google were explaining yesterday, they were starting saying, okay, research engine, ad sales, application. And it's a path towards that. I mean, I'm not saying that, but it's a path towards starting from a kind of technological tool, an algorithm, towards creation of culture. So what if they enter into the mechanism of making that community can produce more relevant content, more organized content that then can be servicing and advertising in a better way. So the question is, at that point probably the friction could be bigger also with the other players.
Did you have a question, sir?
Yes, actually, two questions. Jan Oetjen from lastminute.com. You stated a lot about TV and internet, the future. It would be great to get a snapshot for the four of you. What you think is going to happen? Is those technologies going to merge? Are they going to continue to coexist? Or is the one going to kill the other? And then short statement, as we're going to have the next European Cup 4 years from now, hopefully with British participation. Where do you think most of the audience will watch? Where the internet or where typical broadcast TV?
Good question.
Well, yes,
Chad, go ahead.
Well, I think they're all going to exist. Just like someone mentioned yesterday, someone thought VHS tapes are going to kill the movie industry. Same with the DVD. Advances in technology actually add to the bottom line. I feel this online video format is new and unique, and it's going to be a different way people consume their media, and it's just going to add to the choices that people have today. And so I don't see one or the other kind of killing each other. There's just going to be more choices for the consumer. That's how I feel.
I agree in a sense that, at least to our experience, maybe we can be wrong, but we have seen during the years media that were complementary to other experience. Then we have seen supports disappearing. VHS, for example, and probably in the future DVD, etc. But at least for a user experience, when a media is able to conquer a space, mind space and time space in people's life, tend to resist on that sense. How if it's not substituted by something completely cannibalized?
Broadcast's very cheap. It's very cheap to send the same signal to millions of people. And I think that the sunk infrastructure in Britain and elsewhere will live for many years. And so whilst I see IP becoming a bigger part of the mix, I don't ring the death knell of other means of distribution. And so for your next football match, I think that those live events will always be the events that bring people together around the television set. And yes, there'll be a significant number of those probably getting it over IP, but I bet the majority in 2012 and 2010 and going up to the next Olympics will be via good old-fashioned distribution methods.
But will the television set be a television set as we understand it now?
Yeah, it's something we've obsessed about, that kind of how do you get IP signal to the television set? And it's interesting because, first of all, it matters less than I thought it was going to matter. More and more people are quite happy to watch television on their laptops or on their PCs, and more people have got media centers or whatever. But that hybrid set-top box, and Sky announced a couple of days ago that they're going to light up the IP connection in the back of their Sky Plus box, and you've got BT Vision looking like it's finally making traction. Obviously, you've got cable. Yeah, I think that's the next big change. It's been a long time coming, but I think 2009 is going to be the year when the television set connected via IP starts to become a mass market, and then we'll see something happen.
Christian.
Yeah, I think I've not seen Juiced killing TV at all during the last year, as it was, I think, announced. And especially for live events, definitely, I think soccer I will always want to watch with my friends on the couch, or even public viewing in front of Brandenburg Gate with 1 million people during the World Cup. That's not going to be on my video or YouTube. And I think, yeah, they're going to coexist.
You had a question, sir?
I'd like to ask about video search. As more and more content becomes available, helping people find what's most pertinent to their interests is going to be a bigger challenge. I think the EPG model of the iPlayer is far from efficient, and I think the volume of content on YouTube means that finding the nuggets relies on the community to put them forward. So that's difficult. So I'd like your thoughts on how video search will evolve. And as a context to that, I think many content owners would envy the fact that Google has managed to grab an awful lot of the revenue by not originating the content. And is this something that the content owners amongst you in the video space worry about, that the mechanism to bring the audience to the content, that mechanism of the future will grab the lion's share of the revenue?
Chad.
Yeah. Okay. In terms of the technology, I think, yeah, you're talking about the volume of videos that we receive on a daily basis. It's really hard to find what you're looking for. We're looking at ways to improve the algorithms, to improve the relevance of the videos that we're recommending, the recommendations for you based on browsing activity. We're trying to incorporate more social aspects into the site. I think the majority of the people find an interesting video by someone emailing it to them. So we're trying to capture more and more of that on the site by improving sharing and creating a customized homepage that captures some of that activity. If they're sharing, uploading, rating, or commenting, you can kind of see what your network of friends are doing. So I think that'll add you know, a nice kind of new angle to what we're doing with the service. But you know, talking about the content itself, we also have to do a better job in terms of compensating our users. Like I said, we wouldn't be here without them, and we have a long way to go in terms of incorporating our new advertising models, but I'm confident we're going to get there. And we'd love to see people actually have a chance to support themselves by creating something unique that they're sharing with the world. But I mean, beyond that, I think a lot of the users, or this online video movement, isn't necessarily motivated by money. It's motivated by having the chance to be seen and just sharing their talents with the world. And
huge numbers of uploads on how to do impressions, for example. You know, one guy I noticed the other day had a thing. I didn't see the whole thing. I must confess, an hour on how to do a Christopher Walken impression. And
Are you good? Can you do it for us?
No, I can't.
Okay.
I can't. Yeah.
All right. Well,
Al Pacino, you know, starts
yeah,
high and then it goes down low.
yeah. But I think people just like to share. People like to share what they're doing, and other people find that interesting, and hopefully we can serve as kind of a stepping stone or a stage for people to take things to the next level. We know we're not the end-all, be-all in terms of you make it on YouTube and you have a career for yourself. You can go on to produce your own content, to write movies, to get a record contract, and we're happy to serve as kind of that middleman. We don't want to own the content or own their careers. We just want to help them get their voice out there.
Sure. Video search.
Well, we've seen some very interesting technology in the field of speech to text, which works, you know, almost real. Well, it works real time, and you get very good results from it. Of course, for a user-generated site, that only covers, you know, part of your videos, because not all of the videos contain speech, or at least not a speech you can understand. Sometimes it's singing, sometimes it's just noise and crash noise or things like that. So it won't cover all of it, but at least you know, maybe 50%. It will enable us to actually, for the first time, look into the video like, you know, Google does with text analysis. Because so far you have to see that for Google AdSense, for example, the video really is a black box and they cannot look into it. So I think that's going to help also in the video search part.
I'd be interested to know how much of your traffic comes from people coming in on a search, and then how much of it comes from people serendipitously going on a journey. Because I think search is pretty important to us. We've had voice to text and subtitles, closed captioning search running on our news site from Blinks and other providers for quite a while now, and we're trying to get into searching of the images within the video, working with IBM Marvel project, and it's interesting. But actually, you know, what's the BBC been about for the last 80 years? Well, it's scheduling this program after this program after this program to hammock audiences across. And I think that just as important is working out what your audience want and offering up that program either in adjacency or following the program they watch. And I think that's going to be a combination of technology, but I hope, sort of betting kangaroo on this to a bit, is that it's also a skill in working out who your audience is and actually giving them content they didn't know they wanted, but are going to enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, what we've seen on the site is about 50-50 in terms of how the people are interacting, and they, you know, half the people search for what they're looking for, but the rest of that experience, the other half is filled with browsing. Through the recommended videos on the right-hand side. So you start your experience with a search, and then you kind of stumble through the site by clicking on the next videos. Yeah.
You had a question, madam.
I think we're out of time. I can make it into a remark.
Go ahead.
I think I only wanted, from the point of view of the platform operators, so the telcos and the cable companies, if I understand it rightly, there's already lots of complaints by British Telecom since the iPlayer is out, that their whole network infrastructure is overloaded, and that they're now forced to upgrade the network infrastructure to glass fiber and all those kind of things.
If we are out of time, I at least need to be able to come back on this. Because British Telecom haven't said that. In fact, British Telecom, on the record, the new CEO, Ian Livingston, said quite the opposite, that he welcomes the iPlayer. It has had no impact on their network. What we're seeing here is that the impact, if there is one, has been marginal, and it's on some of those internet service providers who have to buy capacity wholesale from BT and haven't necessarily local loop unbundled their local network. It's a complicated argument, but the majority of ISPs have gone on the record to say actually services like the iPlayer drive demand and they are a good thing in the market. But we can have a really long conversation about this over a few beers.
You know, I've just realised I'm surrounded by red lights, which means that I will shortly spontaneously combust. Nikesh has a button which will do that, which I don't want to do. Can you please join me in thanking our excellent panel? And thank you very much indeed for your time. Thanks. Good job. Enjoyed it.